Okay guys, how we doing? Welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well today. Thank you very much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Shout out to all the subscribers. Big up to anybody new. Gratitude to you. Let's talk about Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall 2. These guys like each other. They absolutely hate each other. Wow. I mean, it does seem like they really don't like each other. I say hate. I think it's billed as that, you know, the hate runs deep, but I'm not so sure they really hate each other like Froch and Groves did. You know, that's probably the one other biggest rivalry from the UK. Shout out to the UK massive locked in as well. I don't make enough videos in the UK. Sometimes when I make them, the algorithm just, I live in America, so it just tanks a little bit, and I just end up spending a lot of time for views that don't do as well. It breaks my heart, you know. Anyway, we're here now, so shout out to the UK massive. And I was saying Froch Groves was probably the closest or biggest rivalry where you could just tell these guys do not like each other. I'm not convinced Catterall Taylor's that deep, but they certainly don't like each other, and there's definitely been a lot of needle. And anyone that doesn't know that term in America, needle just means like bit of spite, bit of nastiness between them, you know, in the build-up. Obviously the first fight that happened, let's talk about that quickly. Nobody thought Josh Taylor won that fight. There's no way. Look, I didn't have it personally as this outrageous robbery. I had it a lot closer than most, to be honest with you. I think I had Catterall winning by 2, maybe 3, but he definitely won. But I didn't, you know, there's some people that were saying it was the worst decision they'd ever seen. I totally disagree with that. I watched the fight again a couple of times, and there's like, I think 2 or 3 of the early rounds, excuse me, you could give to Taylor. Andre Ward had Taylor 3-1 up. I think the first and the fourth, I think it was probably 2-2 was a fair estimate from there. I don't think, I watched the 4th round a few times because I was like, how did Andre Ward give him the 4th round? And again, there was something crazy like the CompuBox from round 4 onwards. And CompuBox, you know, it's a little flaky, I get that, but Taylor didn't land more than 6 punches from round 4 or maybe round 5 to round 9. Okay, I think it was round 4. So you know, it gets you in the ballpark of roughly what is going on. But you could tell Catterall started to take over, and he started to land that, you know, beautiful. He was landing it earlier on anyway in the first round. That backhand, that 1-2. I quite like Jack Catterall. I do. I think he's a really tidy boxer. He's got a really borderline elite defense, which is one of the reasons I'm so quite high on him, to be honest. I know a lot of people in the UK don't love him. They think he moans a lot, and you know, he's complaining about this and that, and I get that. But his style, to me, obviously isn't the most fun to watch like that, but sometimes I'm drawn into a fighter that just has this original style. Okay, he's just from Manchester. He's got this little Mancunian Philly shell, which I love when he does that, because that takes a lot of skill, a tremendous amount of skill. He's really hard to hit clean because his concentration levels are so high. If you watch him, you know, a lot of defensive wizards, their concentration levels are always really, really high. And Jack Catterall is like amongst that, I think, you know. And you know, Taylor couldn't really land a clean consistently on him at all, and he was looking massively like out of creativity, and his step back as well. When Jack Catterall, his range control is amongst the best in the UK, I'd say, for certain. Maybe even outside of that, his range control is where you can control the distance. Okay, it's superb, Jack Catterall, and that's a part of his defense and his concentration. And then he knows what to do when he's on the inside, and he'll just diffuse anything coming because he keeps watching, and he'll smother a lot of his opponents. It's not easy. I like his trainer too, Jamie Moore. I think he's a bit underrated. I always like what he's got to say. He's always really calm and really to the point. Is from pre-fight, post-fight, during fight. I think he's excellent, and I wish them well, because you know they got. You know, that could have been a life-changing decision for Jack Catterall when you think about it. You know, just from like, he should have been the undisputed champion. He should have got more, you know, way bigger fights. He could have, you know, done quite well with himself from that money that he earned, and it was taken from him, really, you know. But the couple of things that Jack Catterall needs to change, right, is he gets a little petulant in fights. And, you know, there were points being taken off, both of them do. You know, when there's a lot of spite and there's a lot of needle there, that's easy to do. Emotion runs high, but he needs to control that. You don't want to be giving away silly, you don't want to, and I, like, he had a fairly unfair point deduction. I don't know if the referee warned him loads of times, or maybe I missed something, but he had Josh Taylor in some kind of a headlock. It didn't seem that bad, and they took a point off. But my point is, don't at all give the ref any opportunity to have them take points off you at all. Be smart, rise above it. If Josh Taylor's starting some funny stuff, don't meet him with it, because you got to win this fight. And like, winning, in order to win the fight, you got to really box, I won't say perfectly, but cutting out those little extracurricular things can be done. You know, that's the discipline, the in-fight discipline. Don't fall into that. I know that it's not easy. It's easy for me to say, but you know, if you just stop being so petulant with stuff like that, and don't look at the ref. Just get on with the fight. Just do your fight. You're a beautiful boxer. Focus on your boxing. Another thing Jack Catterall did that really kind of disappointed me a little bit in the 12th round. He was really like, didn't try to. You got to take the titles from someone, especially in their backyard. Whether you like that or not, that is something that you have to do. You have to go out and really try to win, especially in the last round. You can't go, okay, we've got this in the bag now, I'm just going to box off the back foot and be careful. If you watch that, he was being very negative. And I was like, no, man, don't do that. And, you know, sure enough, he could have gone out there and tried to win the 12th and made more of an account of himself. I don't want to see that again. If it's close, or even if he's up, just let it hang out. You're not going to get that opportunity again, that undisputed. Well, he hasn't, because it's not for the undisputed. So that's what I mean. The 12th round, you've got to let it go. So I don't want to see him take his foot off the gas if he's up again. I'd love to see him just box a beautiful fight. And look, I'm not pro Catterall. You know, Josh Taylor's been a tremendous fighter. Wow, undisputed. He was a special. When he went through that stretch, he had quite a tough road. I mean, he was taking guys out. He had a tough matchup from Ramirez to Prograis to Baranchek to Postol. You know, he did not have that path easy whatsoever. You know, if you think about it, you know, Devin Haney, I've quite defended him quite a lot. He gets a lot of hate, but I think his dedication to the sport is very admirable. But if you look at how his path to the undisputed, he only had to win one fight against George Kambosos, who he was always going to beat. I made a video about that, and I was like, there's no way he's losing that fight, or something like that. But so you look at, you know, you got to take your hat off to Taylor. He was a beast. You know, does he still have that in him? I mean, he's only 33 years old. He looks a bit weathered, to be honest with you. Like, I know there's rumors of him like partying and drinking a lot and stuff like that. At the end of the day, if he wants to enjoy himself, that's up to him. I've said that about Tyson Fury too. I don't like it, obviously, but you know, I'm not here to criticize someone if they want to enjoy their money or whatever. But if you are going to fight at a top level or a decent level, you're not doing yourself any favors. And sometimes that might sound like a contradiction, because I love it when fighters get the best out of themselves and really push themselves and really want to win and live the life and all that. So, but I tend to go a bit light, because boxing is so tough. You know, it's such a brutal sport, and they've been boxing, you know, he's been boxing a very long time, since a kid. I think he was Taekwondo as well. He hasn't had that many pro fights, and if you think about it, when he became undisputed, he only had like 16 fights, something like that. 15 fights, undisputed champion. That's impressive. But you know, has he just checked out the sport? It does seem like he hasn't put a good performance in for a while. You could put a lot of that down to Tio, but even as good as Tio was, Josh Taylor was pretty poor in that fight. He was pretty poor against Catterall, and I think the matchup, I think the style was just bad for Taylor. Catterall. Jack Catterall is very hard to look good against, you know, because he's a diffuser. And he's a thinker, and his concentration level's high, but he's looking to, you know, take your punches away from you and then land sneaky 1-2s here and there. Jack Catterall doesn't throw enough different variation of punches for me, enough of the time. So it's an interesting fight. I do favor Catterall. I think he's got a good opportunity to really capitalize on whether or not Josh Taylor is does he still want to be in this sport? Does he still want to have a career in it? Because let's just say Taylor does beat Catterall, I mean, like, does he really want to make another run for it, a world title? 140 is a beast of a division. A lot of people talk about his weight, and I've been saying for a long time, like, I never thought it was about the weight, because he openly said that he could make 135 so easily. This was just before the first Catterall fight, right before it. I remember the interview very well, because they asked him, and he's like, man, I could make it a piece of piss. Whether he was saying that as I don't know, it seemed very genuine to me. And then again, this fight, I saw an interview, Jack Catterall said we could have done it at welterweight, but he wanted it at 140. So what does that tell you? Maybe he just didn't want to go up in weight because he's like, Jack Catterall's quite a stocky guy and it would have been a much bigger, but he wanted it at 140. So I'm not really buying into the weight, but when you take inactivity, you take poor performances, you take just, you know, does he have that heart burning in his soul, Josh Taylor? Probably not. I you know, I could be wrong, but nothing leads to me like he really wants to get back in the sport and do some great things. I feel like he's already done that in his head, you know, and he has. He's the former undisputed champion. It's an incredible achievement. But Jack Catterall, for me, I think he's going to be a little bit sharper. I think he's going to be, you know, typically when you know, I know Taylor was coming through in the back end of that fight and started to make adjustments and stuff like that. I get that. But I think I usually tend to favor the tidier boxer in rematches, even if there was a fighter that came through the back end and started to figure somebody out, quote unquote, because I think Catterall put quite a bit in it. He looked like he was getting a bit tired, and just like I said, he took his foot off the gas in the 12th. But interesting fight. I'm going with Jack Catterall on points just. I think he's got enough tools in the bank. I think he's got just the wrong style for Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor had a hard time closing the gap, being very like methodical with his entry. You know, he wasn't really jabbing creatively, and Josh Taylor's very good on the inside. In fact, that's his bread and butter, really. And Jack Catterall doesn't really let you fight on the inside because he's too skillful defensively, and that's going to be the difference for me. And Jack Catterall should. One last thing I'd like to see Catterall do. When he was landing that 1-2, he never really followed it up with a right uppercut. He did it once. I'll try and pull the clip up, but I'd love to see him just, there's an opportunity there for another right uppercut behind that backhand. And, you know, I think Jack Catterall, he's got a good jab, good timed jab. I think he'll win on points just. I think it'll be a bit closer than last time. Hopefully we get some good scoring and it's not a complete, you know, farce. But, you know, I wish both the fighters well. I hope they come out the ring healthy. May the best man win. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching as always. Peace and love. I'm out.